Hi, everybody. How are you today? I hope that this day finds you in good health and good spirit. And I tell you, anytime you wake up in the morning feeling good and knowing where you are, that is something to be grateful for. And so, with that being said, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you once again for tuning in for another episode of TJ's Topics. And here I am. I'm TJ. And as always, it's so good to see you. I tell you, it's always a pleasure to have just a few moments to spend with you. And I try to, you know, keep my discussions as short as possible because I don't like to bore people to death because I hate being bored to death myself, which is one reason why I don't care for sermons anymore. All this preaching and stuff like we grew up with in church. I really don't care for that now. For one thing, it's unnecessary for me. I don't have any need for that now. I feel like I've outgrown all that. And there may be a number of you out there who feel the same way. And as a man, oftentimes it's very uncomfortable being told by another man how to live my life. And not only how to live my life, but how to run my affairs and how to spend my own money, how to handle my own finances. Most men don't go for that kind of stuff, especially black men. but across the board, I don't care what ethnicity you are. If you're a man, you don't necessarily feel right being told by another man who's no better than you, by the way, who 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 doesn't know any more than you, who is not more qualified than you, and sometimes not doing much better than you. But yet he wants to tell you how you need to be living and how you need to do with your family and stuff like that. That's not necessarily a good feeling to me. And I'm sure it's not to a lot of you out there either. Because, I feel like once you get to a certain age in your life, you know how to do things and you know how to make wise choices in different matters. And therefore, you don't need all of that rhetoric and all that you know mumbo jumbo, so to speak, because you grown. And as a old Sunday school teacher said years ago, you can't make grown folk do nothing but get mad. And he was right. He was absolutely right. But at any rate, that's not really what I came to talk about today. What I came to talk about is something that really just came to me because I had another topic I wanted to discuss, but I just wasn't feeling that in my spirit. So while I was in the bathroom earlier, this dropped in my spirit, and I just thought I'd come on here for a little while to share it with you. And that is holding out for a promise. That's what I have been thinking about. And I've been thinking about that. It really dawned on me today, but, at the time that I'm taping this, but it's been on my mind for quite some time. Holding out for a promise. And that's something that all of us, I'm sure, have done at one time or another. We have been holding on to trying to see when certain things were going to come to pass in our lives. When would these promises that have been made to us by certain people in the past be fulfilled? And I think about that old song by the late Reverend James Cleveland that says, Lord, help me to hold out until my change comes. Well, the question is, while we're holding out until our change comes, whatever that change is that we're expecting, isn't there something that we could do in the meantime? Or should we do anything in the meantime? One thing that I do know is that it takes more than just words to bring about certain things. It takes action backing up those words. But sometimes the actions that we know it takes, we're not able to perform. We're not able to do those things, and it may be for financial reasons. It may be, something going on, in pretty much any capacity. It may be pertaining to distance. Perhaps the promise that has been made to us may be something regarding a major thing in our lives, but it's going to require us to relocate or pack up and move here or move there. It's something big, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to go about doing it, and yet we're holding out or holding on for that promise. We expect it to be fulfilled in our lifetime. But there have been many people who have lived and have since gone on, waiting for a promise to be fulfilled, and they were holding out for it, and it never came to pass. And that's so unfortunate. And I've known a lot of people like that. My grandparents, they were holding out for certain promises to be fulfilled in their lifetime, but unfortunately, they didn't hang around. They weren't able to hang around long enough to see those promises come to pass. Like, for example, I wanted to be the one to give my grandmother her first great grandchild. And I prayed. I was serious in that prayer. And I was always serious in my prayers. Back in 2005, I was laying in the bed one night, and I was praying, asking God if he would to allow my grandmother to live long enough to see at least one great grandchild. Now, I will say that promise or that prayer, it was, I guess you could say, answered, so to speak, but not in the way that I had hoped. Because what I was hoping for was to get married and we would have had a child, me and my wife. But of course that never happened. But my sister, she ended up getting pregnant, and she had a child. And so that child was my grandmother's great grandchild, the only one that she lived to see. And the baby was born in 2006, and she transitioned in 2008. Well, here it is now, 2023, and I still have no kids. Not married or even in a relationship for that matter. So I guess that just wasn't meant. But, holding out. That's what I did. And that's what a lot of folks do, and then there have been other promises made. Like, For example, I've been promised that, I've been promised a lot of things. Oh man, cars and houses, jobs, you name it. But it never came to pass. I've been promised that I would get married, you know, and that I'd become a family man. But none of that ever happened. And that's not to say that it won't. It's just that at this time, none of that has happened. And we don't know what the future holds. None of us do. We just live from one day to the next. That's pretty much all we can do in this life, is go from one day to the next, and we strive for the best. We try to do our best. And though things don't always pan out the way we had hoped they would, perhaps it's because there's something better up ahead for us. A whole lot better than what we were looking for. So we just have to look at it from that angle as well. Are there some things that you've been holding out for in your life? Perhaps you've been expecting big blessings, or you've been looking to hit the jackpot, or you've been looking to get married or have a baby, or you've been looking to buy a new car, truck, move into a new home, or what are some things that you've been promised in your lifetime that have yet to be fulfilled? I'm sure it's something, because I can't think of anybody who is walking around on this earth right now that's not looking for something. If you are alive at this present moment, you have your eyes wide open, looking for and expecting something to come to pass in your life, a promise to be fulfilled, one that was made probably a few months back, a few years back, or even a few decades back. And you find yourself getting older, and hair is changing colors, and the years that you have in front of you are becoming fewer, and the years that you have behind you are becoming greater. And that's one thing that causes a lot of people to worry too, because as the days, weeks, months, and years are steady passing, you begin to feel as if the things that you've been promised to come to pass in your lifetime quite possibly may never come to pass, because they may not have been meant for you in the first place. Or maybe somebody lied to you, telling you, and we see that often, especially in church. And I hate to keep bashing the church, but that's been my life experience. It's been my background. It was my foundation. But I think about all of the empty promises that have been made to me while standing at the altar, prophesied over, greased down with oil and Crisco and and all that kind of stuff, laying down on the floor, and they, just think about all that. And a lot of you probably experienced that too. And some preacher told you that God said that you were going to do this and you were going to have that. And this was probably back in the 90s when he told you, either the 90s or the early 2000s. Now here it is, 2023, over 2 decades later, almost 3 decades later. And those promises have still not come to pass. How does that make you feel? I mean, me, I think I'd be a little upset. And when I look back and think about some of the promises that have been made to me, not just by preachers, but by other folk. And I have yet to see them come to pass. And I'm getting older, you know, because, that at times I'm just being for real, it bothers me, and because, like I said, next year, when my birthday comes, be here to see it, I'll be 45 years old. And 45 is half of 90. So next year, if I make it to my birthday, I will be at the halfway mark of where my grandmother, at the time when she transitioned, she was 90 when she left here in 2008. And in 2024, right at the time of the next presidential election, I will have reached the halfway mark of where my grandmama was when she left here 15 years ago. That's something to think about. So, and I don't know where many of you are in your life right now, or if you ever think about things pertaining to stuff like that, but it's something to consider, especially when you think about how short life is. And if people don't stop making these false promises and stuff and these claims of this and that, all they're doing is making fools out of themselves. They literally, they're making an ass out of themselves. They're not just making a fool, they're making an ass. And if you don't be careful, they'll make an ass out of you too. And I've been there. I've had my share of being made an ass out of by a lot of folk, co-workers and church members alike, classmates and neighbors and some kinfolk. Oh yeah, I've been there. Promise me that they're gonna do this and do that. Now it's one thing if something happens, and they're unable to fulfill that promise. We understand. I definitely understand, because things do happen. Life happens to all of us. But to tell somebody that you're going to do something for them and don't do it, that makes you out to be a liar, and then, like I say, you got all these false prophets walking around out here, prophesying over folk and telling them that God gonna do this and do that. Now, it was like they may tell you this in 2023, right now. And then you wake up one morning in the year 2056, and that promise has not been fulfilled yet. Wouldn't you be some kind of pissed? I know I would. For real. So that's what I was thinking about today. Holding out for a promise. And holding out for anything can be rather difficult. It's difficult for a child because they don't have an accurate understanding with regards to the measurement of time. A day to a child seems like a week. A week to a child seems like a month. A month to a child seems like a year. And a year to a child seems like a decade. Well, the same can be said for grown folk a lot of times. However, it's a little different for us because we know how to measure time. And then when we start realizing not only how short life is, but how quickly time passes, then it sort of behooves us to get up and start making moves. And when we make these moves, it's a good idea if we be quiet, keep our mouth shut, and don't tell nobody anything, because a lot of time when you start sharing stuff with certain folk, they try to figure out ways to stop you and block you from reaching your goals, thereby hindering your progress and stunting your growth. So that's why it's not a good idea to mention anything to anybody about what you're trying to do, because 9 times out of 10, they don't care anyway, because they're not trying to do anything for themselves. And they sure as hell don't want to see you do nothing for yourself. Because then you're going to start doing better than them, and they can't stand that. So that's about all I got to say about that. And if you find yourself holding out for a promise and you're yet waiting for it to be fulfilled, well, all I can tell you is that there are 2 options that you have. Either keep holding out and holding on, or you may find an avenue of some sort and see if the universe will start to work on your behalf, whereby you will be able to begin to take the steps that are necessary in order to bring about these promises for yourself and reach the goals that you have made. And in doing so, I believe you'll feel a whole lot better, and you'll come out better on the other side. Because waiting on folk and waiting on this and that, most times it doesn't get you anywhere. So those are my thoughts on holding out for a promise. And I certainly want to take this opportunity to say thank you for tuning in to me, watching this episode here of TJ's Topics. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share it with whoever you wish. And I certainly pray that everything works out for you in your lifetime. And whatever you have been promised, I trust and believe and keep my fingers crossed that it will indeed come to pass. This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding you that every round goes higher and higher. And I definitely look forward to seeing you again on the next go round. And if I don't see you again before then, I hope you have a very happy Memorial Day weekend and enjoy yourself. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.